Distinguished professors and fellow researchers, good morning. I'm Somya Shahi, research scholar pursuing my doctorate in business administration from ESGCI-Paris. I also am currently working as a research and advisory vice president and lead at Accenture. Today, I present research conducted in collaboration with my co-author, Dr. Sujata Shahi, examining the critical intersection between the social and governance dimensions of the ESG framework and the diversity, equity, and inclusion outcomes within the multinational information technology corporations. This paper represents the secondary research component of my doctoral thesis, addressing a fundamental policy practice gap that has significant implications for sustainable restructuring in the IT industry. So the agenda, our presentation today proceeds through 5 substantial sections. We commence with an examination of the critical implementation challenge confronting IT sector, established our theoretical framework grounded in organizational theory, present our systematic methodology employing secondary data analysis, discuss empirical findings regarding organizational profiles and implementation mediators, and conclude with theoretical and practical implementations for advancing ESG DEI integration. So with that, a little background of the research. The contemporary ESG landscape in IT industry reveals a substantial disconnect between the organizational commitments and the measurable outcomes. Our analysis identifies what we term the policy practice gap, a 64 percentage point differential between the stated intentions and demonstrated results. While 90% of multinational IT corporations incorporate DEI commitments within their ESG disclosure frameworks, merely 26% demonstrate strong performance across multiple outcome metrics. Significantly, only 21% of sampled firms for this research reported statistically significant year-of-year increase in women or underrepresented minorities in leadership roles. This disparity occurs within a trillion-dollar global ESG investment market that increasingly demands transparent accountability and measurable progress. The strategic significance extends beyond compliance considerations. As IT sector corporations function as primary architects of our digital infrastructure, developing algorithms and systems that influence billions of users globally. Yet, women comprise only 25% of the global technology workforce. This research addresses the fundamental question of why such substantial gaps persist between organizational intentions and the implementation effectiveness, particularly given mounting stakeholder pressures from investors, regulatory bodies, and talent markets. So, going on to our research objectives. This investigation pursues 4 primary research objectives. First, to identify and classify distinct organizational approaches to DEI implementation within the multinational IT corporations ESG framework. Second, to determine which implementation strategies most effectively mediate the translation of ESG commitments into DEI outcomes, which are measurable. Third is to examine how organizational characteristics and external environment factors moderate this relationship between ESG practices and the DEI performance. And last but not the least, to develop evidence-based recommendations for building resilient DEI initiatives capable of withstanding varying external pressures while delivering substantial outcomes. So moving on to our theoretical foundation, our conceptual framework integrates 3 complementary theoretical perspectives. First is the stakeholder theory, as articulated by Freeman, posits that organizations must consider the interests and expectations of diverse stakeholders, which is employees, investors, customers, and communities to achieve a long-term legitimacy and sustainable success. The second theory that we looked at during the literature review was the resource-based view, following Barney's framework. This positions diverse and inclusive workforce as valuable, rare, and inimitable organizational resources capable of providing sustained competitive advantage through enhanced innovation, capacity, and problem-solving capabilities. And the third theory that we found, which was very relevant to our research, was institutional theory. Drawing from DiMaggio and Powell's work, emphasizes how regulatory frameworks, normative expectations, and cognitive pressures shape organizational behavior and adoption of management practices. All these theory put together, these theoretical perspectives converge to explain how external institutional pressures drive stakeholder expectations, which organizations address through strategic implementations and to achieve uh, a sustainable ESG DEI integration. So with this, we'll briefly take you through the research approach and methodology that we adopted for these research objectives. This study employs a secondary research methodology, systematically analyzing standardized data from 50 multinational IT corporations to examine relationships between ESG practices and DEI outcomes. The research design adopts a post-positive epistemological stance, emphasizing empirical measurement while acknowledging contextual and theoretical influences. Our sample comprises corporations across 3 continental regions, 62% North American, 24% Asia Pacific, 10% European, and 4% other jurisdictions, spanning reporting cycles from 2021 to 2024. Data sources include corporate sustainability reports, third-party ESG databases, including Bloomberg ESG, MSCI, and Refinitiv, and certain industry benchmark analysis as well. The statistical analysis employs correlation analysis, hierarchical multiple regression, cluster analysis using K-means methodology with Silhouette validation, and mediation analysis using the process macro. Our primary regression equation demonstrates, which is given at the bottom of the diagram, it demonstrates that DEI outcomes are predicted by ESG social practices, ESG governance practices, organizational characteristics, and external environment factors with interaction effects. With this, brief on the research approach and methodology, I'll focus the major part of my presentation on the key findings that we got through this. So the most important finding and the categorization that we found in our research was the cluster analysis. This revealed that only 1 in 4 companies are DE&I leaders, while 30% are stuck in the policy and practice gap. So why is it happening? We'll explore through the presentation, what are the factors that are influencing this. But first, to look at the clusters. The cluster analysis reveals 4 distinct organizational response profiles, validated through our analysis, yield and Silhouette analysis, yielding a coefficient of 0.73, indicating robust cluster separation with optimal 4-cluster solution confirmed through elbow method analysis. The first cluster, that is the DEI leaders, representing 26% of the sample with 13 organizations, demonstrates comprehensive ESG DEI integration with mean ESG social and governance scores of 4.4 and DEI outcomes of 4.5 on a standardized 5-point scales. These organizations exhibit proactive responses to external pressures with deep business strategy integration scoring 4.8 and robust success metrics at 4.5. The second cluster that we looked at, which is, the key problem that we are trying to solve, is the policy practice gap cluster, encompassing 30% of organizations, uh, that is 15 companies for a sample, which presents the most concerning finding. Despite maintaining high ESG social commitments at 3.8 and ESG governance at 3.2, with comprehensive DEI policies in place, actual DEI outcomes remain at a moderate level of 3.6, indicating substantial implementation challenges. The third cluster, which is compliance focus, represents 28% with 14 organizations, demonstrates ESG's social scores of 3.2, ESG governance scores of 3, and DEI outcomes of 3, focusing primarily only meeting on the regulatory requirements rather than strategic integration. And while these three clusters are still pushing towards the DEI commitments, there's the fourth cluster with minimal commitment comprising 16%, which exhibits consistently low performance with ESG social scores of 2.1, ESG governance of 1.9, and DEI outcomes of 1.9, demonstrating minimal response to external pressures, with the majority actively scaling back their DEI initiatives. Moving ahead, we will look at the key findings or the implementation strategies which we have seen to be the critical mediator uh, in analyzing the relationships there. So, as we say, success isn't about better policies, it's about superior implementation. It mediates 50%, 56% of the ESG DEI relationship in our sample. So,
You
as
have
I
1
told you,
minute remaining. Sorry to interrupt. 1 minute remaining.
Yep. So, our most significant empirical finding concerns the mediating role of implementation strategies. Three implementation strategies emerge as statistically significant mediators: business strategy integration, success matrix development, and resilience building initiatives. So, with this, the combined effect of these three implementation strategies actually explains 79% of the variance in our DEI outcomes, with organizations implementing all three approaches demonstrating 2.3 times superior performance compared to those with limited implementation capabilities. I'll go through this slide very briefly, saying that, the contextual angle to the whole mediating effect on the DEI outcomes, it also comes from the regional variation and the external environment factors, wherein, political resistance, economic uncertainty, and cultural barriers serve as the negative moderators, while regulatory, stakeholder, and market expectations positively impact this equation. And lastly, this research contributes several significant findings to the ESG DI implementation literature. For organizational practitioners, findings suggest prioritizing implementation capability development over policy elaboration. Context-sensitive strategies prove essential, requiring adaptation based on regulatory environments and organizational resource constraints. And the future research directions include longitudinal analysis to establish causal relationships and track implementation effectiveness over time. And this is something that I am also currently pursuing in the further course of my PhD research, wherein I dive deeper. And right now, through the secondary research, we have established the 56% mediation by bringing in the organizational perspective. But the primary research, which will comprise of samples from the employees' perception of these outcomes, that will bring in furthermore variables to explain the mediating effects. So with this,
Right.
I've
Thank you very
rushed through
much.
the last few slides, but thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.